Today we're going to talk with Aly Pain. She is a relationship specialist, been married for 23 years, and has two teen boys. Her passion comes from growing up in her own circumstances with dysfunctional relationships. We are going to go into so much depth that this is a 3-part episode. Part 3 with Aly Pain. We're going to discuss relationships, whether that be co-parenting, married, or living with someone where we're raising children but have different perspectives on parenting, what that looks like, and how to get rid of the anger and the frustration and to parent better together.
So yeah.
Talking about respect and talking about boundaries, and we're talking a lot about kids, but do you have any words of advice for a situation? Because I hear this a lot in a adult relationship with boundaries and respect and communication. I hear from a lot of my friends and really from myself as well that my parenting style and the way I do things does not always align with the way my partner wants to do things.
Right. Yes.
And that can cause so much added layers. Like him and I might argue because of that, or maybe the kids start to pick up on it and play us against each other.
Yes.
And that I think is something that more people struggle with than like to admit, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're in a same-sex marriage or you're a single parent with an ex that's involved, or if you are in a straight marriage. It doesn't matter. We're all our own individual people.
Mhm.
And so we're going to all at least under certain circumstances, have different ways of feeling like things should be dealt with. Do you have any advice for dealing with those
Yeah.
kind of circumstances?
Again, it comes down to clarity, compassion, and courage. I need to get really clear about what's important to me about this particular topic or way I want things to be, so that I can express that to the person that is my partner, my ex, my whatever, and then hear their side. How do you feel about it? What's really important to you about that? And then it's a where can we either, number one, where can we meet in the middle? And that is not always possible.
Right.
Or it's a, can I have this one? And there's this other topic we tend to argue about more. And really, I've decided it's not a hill I'm going to die on. You have this one. As long as there's these certain parameters, if I can have this one and I'll put these parameters around it. So it is a negotiation, and it's a respectful place where it's always about trying to see what is it the other person is trying to get? What's the experience? What's important? What's the value behind that? How can I have them feel respected in that while I also respect myself? That's what a boundary is.
Right.
And so sometimes it takes a number of conversations, messy ones, digging in to really find that place where I can be okay with what's happening, whether it was my idea or not. And I'm going to then get behind the way it is. Because as you said, when kids notice that there's that little gap and that differentiation, that's like a radar for children. They go diving into that gap like it was the Grand Canyon.
Oh yeah, I had divorced parents.
Yeah, with a baby, right? And so I think we go into those on the offense and deciding what's it going to take for me to get my way, because we come from a place of fear of what if this doesn't happen. And usually my fear of that is worst case scenario. Like, I mean, worst case scenario. And I don't realize that, because that's what my brain was intended to do, is to keep me safe. And so I'm coming from a place of fear, which is then defensive and then aggressive or offensive to get what I want, instead of coming from a place of, okay, I may still be fearful. There's nothing wrong with fear, but I can come to the conversation saying, I'm struggling with this thing that you and I seem to argue about parenting or how we're raising our children. This is what I've realized, clarity. This is what I've realized is my fear. Like, what's going to happen if it doesn't go my way? This is my fear behind that. Can you help me abate this fear and walk me through your way so that I can kind of understand it better? It's not about, when we come from fear, and I'll tell you what, boy, children literally trigger all of our fears and our mama bears and our we come out against and at stuff. Wow. And a lot of it is just it's just instinctual. We just love our kids so much
Yeah.
that place of fear also puts us in a lot of arguments as opposed to even tough conversations.
Right. I mean, there's lots of times where I'm like, my kids aren't going to do this. Right. And I'm
Yes.
talking to my husband and he looks at me like, yeah, they're my kids too.
Yeah.
Right. And like you get so mama, you're right though, with the mama bear thing. I'm like, excuse me. Or if he loses his temper, I mean, I can lose my temper with the kids. It happens. We all lose our temper at some point or another. And that's okay. We'll move past that. But if I see
Yeah.
him lose his temper with the kids, I want to like attack him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I'm watching somebody else be angry with my children. And it's like, no, nobody gets to do that. Those are mine.
Right. And then we have this double standard, right? That is,
Totally. It's
now,
totally a double
there's
standard.
lots of ways to be angry with children. Like, is it swearing and hitting, or is it saying, I'm so frustrated, you guys? Like, so yeah, you can set boundaries about what that looks like. But you're right. The double standard comes in then, and it's like, hang on a second here.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think that it's really hard, especially this year, with relationships. I mean, think about it this way too. You probably have a lot of situations where, like, if a father's been, or one of the partners has been laid off,
Yes.
or one of the partners is working from home when
Right.
they're usually not home. And then all of a sudden they're wanting, which they should, and it's a positive thing to be more involved as a parent, right?
Yes. Yes.
When you're used to doing all of it.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden there's this, you have to let go of some control, and you should let go of some of that control, but man, is it hard to do, especially depending on your personality. I have a very controlling personality. So for me, it's like, you didn't vacuum right. You didn't, whatever. It's the stupidest things. Or even getting mad because I maybe mentioned I had a lot of laundry to do and he didn't magically go do it for me, even though he was home. And it's like, instead of getting mad, I could just say, hey, I have a lot of laundry to do. And I also have a couple other things I really want to do today. Is that something that you think you could do?
Right.
Right. But if I don't express that to him and instead I'm just going, freaking lazy jerk, like there's all this laundry and I told him this morning I had laundry.
Passive aggressive. Yes.
Yes, right. And I think we do that though by
Mhm,
nature
mhm.
sometimes. And I think that that's part of this whole strengthening relationships is communicating better, right? It's setting boundaries with our partners, even if they're temporary boundaries, with while we're living under these circumstances, and
Yes.
understanding their stresses and our stresses are different. I'm stressed out about a lot of things, but mine is more my children's safety and health.
Yes.
And where my husband doesn't need to stress about that because he knows I've got that part covered. Right.
Right.
So
Right.
he's busy stressing about how long is his restaurant going to be closed? How long are we going to not have this income? So that's where his stress is. And also, I have to lay off all these people right before Christmas who depend on that paycheck every week, and the guilt because he cares, right? Like
Yes.
it's
Yes.
hard for him. So he's dealing with that stuff. And then he might walk by and not talk to me all afternoon. And I have had moments where I've had to say to myself, it's not personal. It's not personal. And then he'll later be like, I'm really feeling a lot of feelings right now with what's going on. And I get to say, like, yeah, I put myself in your shoes. And I imagine you're feeling very stressed out right now. So I know that it's not personal when you don't feel like talking to me today. Right. So taking the time, and I'm not perfect. Like I'm learning as I go along. Right. So there's many a times where I was like, well, good morning to you too, a-hole. Like, there's been lots of mornings like that. But I'm trying. We're always trying to do better. So in those moments, taking, just like we're asking ourselves to do with our children, and to look at things from their perspective, looking at it from our partner's perspective. Now, not every
Right.
relationship is going to make it through. For some that already were in a relationship that maybe they felt stuck in
Yes.
or were unhappy in, this may be a breaking point for you.
Yes.
And that's
Yeah,
okay. And that could
it
be a
is.
silver lining. As hard and scary as that is, this lifestyle that we're currently living in maybe is going to make you realize your self-worth and that you
Yeah.
deserve to be treated better than you are, and it's time to walk away.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
be thankful that even though it's hard and scary, that you were given that opportunity to do that.
Right.
Whereas if you're in a healthy relationship and you love your partner and you're just at a point where you're like, I'm gonna get an apartment. Like, I don't want a divorce, but I need to not live with you right now. Then those are the ones that are fixable. Those are the ones that you get to have those conversations with, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to go to your point about what if your spouse, your partner is home more than they used to be, and then you're watching them parent and you're like, whoa, stop, no. Not exactly that, but my husband used to travel for extensive periods of time. So 4 to 9 weeks at the longest was one time. So I got two little boys, and he would come home, and it was kind of a joke. At first, it was like especially when they were babies, he'd come home and it was like having a babysitter in their house. Like I would have to re-show him, no, this is what he's eating right now. This is how much he eats. No, his nap schedule changed. So it was like, and not be angry at him because he didn't know that. It wasn't his fault that he didn't know that. It wasn't like he was a checked out dad. He was in a different country. And PS, no, there was no FaceTime at the time. So it's not like we couldn't afford collect calls. If you must know, we would talk once every 2 weeks or so because we couldn't afford collect calls. We lived below the poverty line. We were broke. And so he would come home, and this would be the same as if you have a partner or spouse who's been laid off or is home more on the holidays. And he was a wonderful, loving parent. He just had missed a really key time, especially when they were wee little, and didn't know the changes. He wasn't stupid. I just needed to, it was frustrating for me because I was tired and I'm like, God, I shouldn't have to explain this. But I had to explain this and give him that opportunity to step into, and he always would step into.
They usually will,
Yeah,
right?
step into what they were doing now, or what their favorite show was, or what toy they were obsessed with, or don't move this, they have a lose their minds, or just to give him that compassion of reintroducing. We used to reintroducing himself to the family. I knew he'd been home long enough when the kids would get hurt and they would yell for him, because I have two boys, and that was usually around the 5-week mark. He'd have to be home for 5 weeks before they would let him read a bedtime story, before they would call for him if they were hurt, and that was enormously difficult and hurtful for him.
Yeah.
He had to sit in that. So if your partner is home more, and the way they're parenting, or they're reintroducing to parenting, please make sure that it's not a shameful experience for them, that they are less intelligent, less capable. No, it's that this is more time than they have spent with these children for some period of time.
Right.
So their role has changed, and whatever, even if it's just the Christmas holidays.
Yeah.
And that it's okay to say, I am super clear about how I want this parenting to go, and it's not going that way right now. And it's hard for me. It's hard for me to watch.
Yeah.
And to be able to laugh a bit at yourself a little bit about that. And also, like you said, stand back and breathe for a minute and go, okay, well, is he whipping them with a belt? Well, no. Is he using words they wouldn't necessarily use? Sure. Are they a profane No. Just stand back for a minute and breathe. And also, if there's something that is bothering you, bring it up in conversation, but remember that this person does love their own children as well. And they're just getting to parent in a different way than they have for a while. So take a breath.
Yeah. And I think two things there that are really important. The first is we have that mom guilt, right? Or parent guilt, we'll call it. They already are feeling that for themselves. And in a lot of cases, you're in a situation where you're with the other person might not be as outspoken about their emotions.
Yes.
So they might not be showing it to you, but they are still feeling bad that maybe they don't know what white tiger stuffed animal you're talking about that your kid can't find that they have to sleep.
Yes.
or that your teenager all of a sudden is really into this specific type of music and they hate that other kind that they used to love. So like,
Yeah.
right? Because or all of a sudden I hate roast beef and love shrimp or whatever silly little thing it is, that
Yes.
every time they find one of those, it makes them feel bad that they
Yeah.
didn't already know it. So you
Yes.
saying, well, why don't you know this? Or I shouldn't have to tell you this. You're their dad or you're their
Yes.
mom, whatever. Either way, you're just adding layers and then they're going to just get so down that they're not going to try. You want them to try to do
Yes.
better and you want them to like step up, then you need to do the same that you would do with your children, which is build them up. Right.
Right. Right. And can I say for those kids, this is at no means a cut against any single parent. For any two-parent home, I don't care what that looks like. If for any two-parent home, little secret here, so come close to the camera. You're not supposed to be the same.
Right.
Okay? You're not supposed to be the same. Your children are receiving a gift in being exposed to at least two different ways of being. Neither way is right. Neither way is wrong. Your children are going to gravitate to parts of one, parts of the other, or all of one and all of the other. That doesn't make it wrong. But if you're the same, I'm not sure why you're both there.
Right.
It's supposed to be different.
That's actually a very valid point. And I think people do forget that. It's such a common thing too. It's like you think you would know that, but you're correct. It is important that, and you also, as a relationship, it's important you're not the same because that's how we make each other better. That's how
Yes.
we help each other grow. Like my husband is an introvert and he is super intelligent and he loves to read a lot. I'm not a big reader personally. I much rather listen to something or watch a video about something than I would read a book. But that he does these things, I do these things, and we get to feed off of each other's energy. And my extrovert personality brings him out of his shell sometimes. And also, he grounds me, right, with his personality. Like when I'm doing too much at once and I'm too overwhelmed, his like natural calmness about him and his like ability to take time for himself grounds me and makes me want that too. Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's these major different personalities. I mean, if you saw us, you'd be like, what? But,
Yeah.
but I agree with you. It is good. And it's important to remember that. It really is. I mean, even with little things, like I'm really big about my son learning how to show emotion. And I am really trying to raise a boy who knows that if he's really sad and he needs to cry, that there's no shame in that and he's allowed to cry. Right. That's an
Yes.
important thing to me.
Yes.
And my husband, who isn't as good about showing his feelings, he's working on himself all the time, but he's been raised in kind of a like, you know, I don't know, it's just a guy thing, his generation, whatever it is, he's not as expressive with his feelings. And so he's very quick to try to tickle my son and make him laugh when he's crying.
Oh,
You see what I'm saying? So then I'm
yeah.
like, stop. He doesn't want to laugh. Like he's laughing because you're tickling him. But as soon as you stop, he's going to start crying again. And like, so we have those kind of hurdles where it's like, I'm trying to teach him it's okay to cry. And he's like, I'm just trying to make him happy. Like his intentions are so good.
Yes.
But I take it like you're doing the opposite of what I want you to do. But is it going to break my son's ability to cry when he has feelings if every once in a while he cries and his dad tickles him?
No.
No. And you got to
No.
ask yourself that, right? You really have to sit there and say, okay, wait a minute. 90% of the time when he gets hurt, he cries and he cries it out. He's not this one time because his dad happens to be standing in the room and chose to tickle him. And
Right.
okay.
Right. And that's and kids will learn that, and that's okay. Your son might learn that you are the safer one to cry with, like when they're older. Because mine are 17 and 19 now, and now we have these really open, respectful, joking conversations that because they're so poignantly aware of my husband and I's differences, and they'll be like, Isn't it so funny that mom likes it this way and dad likes it this way? And they think it's funny because we have made it okay to be different.
Yeah.
We've made it okay to not be the same. We've made it okay for them to be different than that. And is your husband always going to be the most in-depth emotional person? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Are your kids going to go, if I need a good cry, that's probably a mom thing. And I know that sounds stereotypical. I'm just talking about the example you gave.
Right.
And if I want to go have a good laugh and have fun, is that a dad thing? Yeah. Well, is there anything wrong with that? Like, isn't that the benefit of having more than one person? Again, I'm not saying this against single parents. Like, I mean, power to you, because I understand. I single parented a whole 5 to 8 years of my children's
Right.
Youth, and I understand what that takes to try and be the dad and the mom and everything. But it's okay for your kids to experience a range of personality style, because look at what you're showing them is normal and is okay, and they can fall anywhere on that line or way on the other side of a line you've never even seen. Bring it.
Right.
Welcome here.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree with that. And on the single parent side of that, I joke with my daughter because she's a single mother and I was a single mother until she was 5. And I always say, this is the silver lining to being a single parent is you don't have to negotiate or
Yes.
or find a middle ground on your parenting. You just get
Yes.
to do the things that you want to do the way you want to do them, which was a problem for me once I got married.
Yes.
Right. Because
Right?
then I all of a sudden had this other guy trying to help parent. And I was like, I'm sorry. I've got this whole parent thing covered. I've always been doing it by myself. I don't need you to do
No.
that.
Yes.
You
And
can
it
play
can,
with her, but don't you dare parent. Right. Like it took time. It took time for me to let that into my life and feel
yeah.
safe. Right. To feel safe for him to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, it is a real challenge. It can be a real challenge for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. There is definitely pluses to being a single parent, not,
There is.
and there's definitely pluses to being a married couple, right?
Yeah.
Neither are perfect by any
Neither
means.
are perfect.
No,
Nope.
the grass
No.
isn't greener on the other side. I can
No. It's a
attest to
journey.
that for both
It's a
sides.
journey on both sides.
Aly Pain, how can people find you if they want to get more content from you?
They can go to my website, alypain.com. That's ALYPAIN.com, or Instagram is great, @AlyPain.
All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today. It's been awesome.
Absolutely. So good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.